I need to warn you, I'm slightly more relaxed than I should be. So we've been hosted by some very kind listeners. They've been plying us with beer and wine.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, then I guess we're all almost on the same page, right?
Everyone, grab a beer. Get a glass of wine. We got to catch up.
Quite right, too.
So, hello everybody, and welcome to another fun and exciting episode of Stories from the Trail. We are the hiking community's only live call-in show. I just decided to finally start adding that. We're going to try to
I like
with
that.
With a tagline. Something,
it's accurate.
Yeah, something to kind of brand the show and have us set apart. Because, we do interviews, but we don't always do interviews. Sometimes we just hang out and discuss a topic. A couple of weeks ago, we reviewed a movie. We try to do something different every time. We're kind of like the Saturday Night Live of hiking podcasts. We meet once a week. We have a fairly large cast. We have a rotating featured guest, and only about 10% of our material is really any good.
But you know what? We're going to be going forever.
We'll see about that. I'm going to have to take a break and go out into the woods pretty soon. I'm Gary Sizer, Green Giant, one of your hosts, and that other voice you hear joining us this evening, as usual, is Voldemort. Hi, Voldemort.
Hello, Voldemort, a.k.a. Megan.
Or Megan, a.k.a.
Or Megan, a.k.a. Voldemort. Whichever way you want to do it.
Oh my God, look at what Booster just put in the chat.
Just saw that. That's amazing.
Nice.
Booster just put in a graphic in the chat that says, it's our logo, and it says Stories from the Trail, talking poop since 2017.
Oh no.
I love that. I'm going to steal that graphic.
Yep. So we get together on Wednesday nights on our Discord server, usually with a live audience of hikers, and people are pretty active in the chat while we do this. I try not to let it distract us too much, and hopefully some of our good questions will come from the chat.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think last but not least, let's introduce our featured guest this evening, Steve Adams, aka Mighty Blue. Hello, Steve.
Hi, how you doing?
Excellent. It's very nice to have you with us this evening.
Well, I'm, as I say, I'm slightly more relaxed than I need to be right now, but I thoroughly enjoy sitting here with my feet on the bed, on a chair, showered, in my long johns, and because everything else is washing, obviously, in my long johns and a glass of wine. That's kind of nice.
That sounds awesome.
Sounds like a perfect evening.
Especially in the middle of a thru hike. Yeah, Steve, I was trying to remember when you and I first met. I know we've talked a bunch of times, and you host a podcast, and you've written 1 or 2 books? And
3 books.
3 books, yeah. And I was trying to remember where we met. And
I interviewed you because I'd heard about you, obviously. We were the class of 2014.
That's right.
And we never met each other on the trail. You were always just, because you started about 3 months after me. You nearly caught me. Even then, you nearly caught me.
There was no chance.
But then I obviously, I'd heard about you and your book came out and so I wanted to interview you. And when I got the podcast going, I contacted you and you kindly were at my episode number 10, I believe.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and it's still a popular one.
Wow, thanks.
Been downloaded over 5,000 times.
What? No kidding. Wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
So that's kind of nice. Yeah, it's kind of nice.
Oh, I hope we can return the favor. Yeah, and I think I've been on your show a couple of times. Like once we talked about the Foothills Trail, and
that's right. That's right. And I think you've been on 3 times. But there was also, was it If I Did It Again, or Fear and Loathing on the Appalachian Trail? Various different things I've tried to put into the show. What people were frightened of. Interestingly, funnily enough, if you don't mind me just going off a slight tangent.
Please do.
When I did that thing, what were people frightened of or concerned about before they started the trail? About 80% were concerned about not finishing. I always thought that was really interesting because I never thought there was any particular possibility of actually finishing. So, the fact that people worried about not finishing was an interesting thing to me, that was one of their great fears.
Yeah,
and I get that fear now, funny enough.
Okay.
I now really want to finish more than I did first time.
Well, I've been getting caught up on your show, and in one of the most recent episodes, I think you actually said that for the first time, at least on this particular go round, you got that feeling of I can do this. Is that right?
Yes, I did. It's funny, and I'm sure you get this as well. There's a rhythm to a hike, isn't there? And it hits us, I think, there's the gasping for breath rhythm, which took me about 300 miles. and then eventually you get your breath okay, and then you start getting your legs. But you're still not convinced you're hiking properly. And then suddenly you get a moment, you think, man, I'm good. I'm doing pretty damn good at this. That's not the time at which I fall, by the way, as well.
Yeah,
but generally, I suddenly feel I can really do this again. And I was concerned before that being 66 now, and I was 61 when I first did it, that 5 years has definitely made a difference. But I've looked at where I was 5 years ago, and I'm about 9 or 10 days ahead of where I was.
Okay, so you're 66 now. You were 61 on your first go round.
That's right.
So before your first hike on the AT, what kind of hiking experience did you have under your belt?
Absolutely zero. I'd never hiked in my life. I'd never set up my tent. Actually, I set up my tent once in my living room, which wasn't a great idea because there's almost intuitively that's going to be flat. And it took me a long time to discover you need to set up on the flat. I ended up with a pile of stuff in the corner of my tent every morning for the first 4 or 5 weeks. I'd never hiked.
I'm very curious to know, what your life was like prior to that. Like, what led you to the decision? What did Steve Adams do before he was a hiker? I'm picking up a bit of an accent as well.
I'm from Alabama.
What part of Alabama are you from?
I'm from the London part of Alabama.
Okay.
I came from the UK, and I moved over to America, to New York City, in fact, in 2005. But before that, I used to travel a lot internationally on business, and I'd go and get books. And I always read Bill Bryson.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that book, and I read it on one sitting on the way on a flight to it was either Japan or Australia, and I just loved it. And I know Bryson people either hate him or love him. And I've actually tried to interview him on very subject. And he wasn't terribly keen on talking about that particular subject.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And, but yeah, and I just loved it. And it really inspired me, the thought of having this. And we talked about this the other day, my hiking partner and I, we talked about how this one trail that we started in Georgia is still going 1,200 miles or 1,300 miles later. And it's just amazing to me. Every single time I go around a tiny little corner or whatever, I think every other person who's ever hiked this has done this as well. I think it's just extraordinary.
It is amazing to think of all those feet that hit that exact spot, years or decades before. Like this is the spot where Baltimore Jack stepped. Grandma Gatewood's foot was here. Yeah. It's kind of mind-blowing.
And we feel that connection, don't you? I feel that connection to everybody's done it. And in much the same way, those dreadful events of a couple of weeks ago, that murder, it felt like such a personal thing to me. Being on the trail and hearing about that, I know obviously it was worse for him and everybody else around him, but it felt such a personal attack on the trail. And it really upset me for days and days, and before I could even think about what to say about it. And it was just a horrible, horrible time.
Yeah, it did.
I know exactly how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you do. I mean, you did it, Megan. I'm going to tell you, by the way, Gary didn't do your voice in the reading of his book anywhere near as well as he did Lemmy's. I think you should try to do a female voice far better than you do, Gary.
Well, if you guys actually heard Lemmy speak, you would know that his Lemmy voice isn't actually all that accurate.
You don't think so? No?
I prefer Gary's version.
Gary, there's the bus, and there I go throwing you under it.
Oh, that's okay. And I am driving the bus.
Lemmy is just Lemmy. He's he's such a character. Like,
I'm sure.
He really did come alive in the book, but man, just to hear his voice read his own character would be so cool.
It would be.
I'm sure.
He's we do have to get him on at some point. He's an interesting fella.
Yeah. So I think the trail has such a resonance with me. First time, I never ever thought I'd hike again, and now here I am a few years later, back on it, and it's kind of strange but wonderful in the same way it was wonderful first time.
So
ask you about that. Oh, sorry, Gary.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about. I mean, this is your round 2 for hiking AT. When I finished the AT, a lot of people and even in the years since, a lot of people ask me, would you ever do it again? Are you going to do any other long distance trails? And I didn't really have an answer for them because I didn't really know. But every time someone asks me, would you do the AT again? I've been kind of leaning towards no, because I've already done it, but I want to hear about why you chose to do it for a second time and how it's different for you this time around.
Well, I'd want to ask you, why on earth would you not want to do it again? It is so damn different. You know, I for example, I took a picture this time. Do you remember that walk up Max Patch? Those wooden steps that take you up to Max Patch.
Yeah. And
they were beautiful. They were beautiful in the sunlight when I went up first time, and they were beautiful in my picture of the fog when I went up this time. But I saw Max Patch two entirely separate ways. And then there was another place. I've forgotten what it's called now. I can't remember it, but I know it's got knob in the title, but as these things often have. Great Fire School knob, that's right. And I went up it first time in terrible weather, and there's a blue blaze you can go round in terrible weather, but I was determined to all the white blazes, so I went up, didn't see a single thing either side. I went up this time, and I can see all of Tennessee and all of North Carolina on the other side. So I'm seeing things I didn't see first time. I'm not seeing things I did see first time. So in terms of the views, everything's there. And obviously, everything's different rather. And obviously the people are all different as well. But there's still that same feeling for the trail. And I've fallen in love with the trail all over again, just as I always expected I would do.
Great. You've convinced me. Sold.
Yep.
Do it. As I say, really, why would you not want to do it? It's so wonderful.
So true.
It's so wonderful, you know. And the people out there haven't changed. I on my show the other day, some woman said to me that, she'd written an email to me saying that she's worried about all the stuff she reads on Facebook, and I would normally just respond to that in an email, but I actually put a piece in the show about it. Do not believe the crap you're hearing on Facebook about the Appalachian Trail. It's nothing like that at all. And the people there are so much kinder. They want your success almost as much as they want their own success. And I find that never exists in anything other than the Appalachian Trail that I've ever done in my life.
I think it's a lot to do about attitude as well. I mean, it's like with anything in life, positivity breeds positivity. So if you approach it with an attitude of, I'm here to do this fun, inspiring thing, and I'm here to learn and focus on the positive things, you're going to attract positive people, and
I think so,
less of the negative stuff.
I've been talking about this evening with my hosts, and really, I think that it brings out the best. It magnifies the best parts of all of us, and the people you meet are the best versions of themselves you're going to meet.
That. Most insightful thing that I've heard about like the AT.
I found it terribly emotional this year, and because I think to myself, I'm never going to come this way again, and I never thought I had the chance to do this again, and it's a wonderful experience. And obviously with the podcast, a lot of people have known me, and that's been great when people want to come and visit you and hike with you and entertain you and stuff like that. It's just been just wonderful. And Gary, you'd have a blast out here again because everybody knows you anyway. So, you'd have a blast. You just and you'd meet another Voldemort. You'd meet another somebody else, you'd have another experience, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, I've wondered about that. I've thought about it. You're right, and that's one of the questions that I was hoping to ask you is how that has affected your hike the second time around. Seems like you've already answered that though, because first time around you were just Steve, just some guy. You didn't have a podcast, you didn't have a book, nobody knows your face, and that's not distracting from the experience at all.
No, but I've got a list 30 long, people who either want to hike with me or want to take me somewhere, or want to bring me stuff on the trail. And I've tried to maintain the integrity of the hike as much as I possibly can. I don't want to be slack-packed all the time. Every now and then it's great, but I want to still enjoy the whole experience. So some I've accepted and some I haven't, not because I don't particularly want to be with that person. It's just that it's just important to me to have a hike as opposed to be taken from one place to another all the way up the trail, which I literally could slack pack all the way to Katahdin. I don't want to do that.
Okay. So that's another, this is why you're good at this, is because you're answering my questions right before I ask them.
Done this before.
It's almost like I could just
who'd have thunk?
Upload the audio from an episode of Mighty Blue, put our theme music on it, and be like, there you go. No, but yeah,
that's called plagiarism.
Oh,
yeah, I know. Sorry about that.
So what I'm referring to is the expression you use, the preserve the integrity of the hike, and I was going to ask you to expand on that, but you did. And I wonder if you could expand on that a little bit more of how you kind of working on this hike ties into your idea of what's your idea of an integral hike.
I think it's for me. I mean, hike your own hike is. I know it's an expression that everybody uses, but I want to do this my way. And my way is to literally not literally, but effectively go past every single blaze that I can.
Okay.
I want to carry. I mean, for example, if I get dropped off on one side of the road and I was picked up, say in town, when I was going into town on the other side of the road, I go back across the road to touch where I was actually picked up. I want to cross that road again. Even if it's a busy highway, I'll go back across that road. So that, for me, is a connected path of steps between Springer Mountain, Georgia, and Mount Katahdin, Maine.
Okay.
I want to carry my kit most of the time, and then if we're going to stay in a place twice and slack pack, I'm happy with that as well. I still regard that as still part of the hike, because I'm taking everything I need on that day on my back. I always take at least 15 pounds on my back, even when I slack pack. And I think just avoiding, I wouldn't miss any of the trail. I just want to experience the whole trail exactly as it is.
Okay.
I tell you that when you do it a second time, you get much more context of where you are on the trail. And I totally didn't get that first time.
Oh, that makes sense.
And, I see things in an entirely different light. Standing Bear Farm, for example, which was a kind of crazy sort of place both times, but they've improved it so darn much. I think it was one of the absolute places to stop at now. I love it there now. I thought it was okay first time, but this time it was great.
Did you?
Sorry?
I was going to ask if you recognized any of the food in the pantry from your first time round.
Specifically, some red, white, and blue Pop-Tarts that might have been there in 2014, but had been sitting there since 2010.
I didn't, but I end up leaving that place, and because I'm an honest person, and my father would, even though my father's been dead 20 odd years now, he would kill me if I didn't do this. I accounted everything. My bill for one night at Standing Bear Farm was over $120.
Oh wow!
Wow,
that's a lot of Pop-Tarts.
Because I had the breakfast.
That's impressive.
I had the breakfast, I had the lunch, I had the dinner, all of which was excellent, by the way. I had a private cabin I shared with 3 people, which isn't terribly private, and tons of resupply. It was $120 and worth every penny, by the way.
All right. Okay.
We didn't stay there.
Didn't you?
For a few hours, just long enough.
For a couple hours, long enough to eat too much food, like enough food to regret it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and
that's always a good thing.
It just wasn't conveniently placed based on our pacing. It would have been like a 6-mile day for us if we had stopped there, and you know what I mean? Like it.
Yes, I do. And that's another thing you do, because, you go at a different time, you can stop at different places, because you're right, that pacing isn't right for you that day. And that's another lovely thing. I'm not staying at all the same places either.
Okay, good. But some of them you are, right? You're a repeat offender. A couple
repeating
of places.
Some of the good ones.
Yep.
It's not so much because they're good. It's because they are where they are on the hike. I don't think I've stayed anywhere because I stayed there the first time. The hike is just different. It's different. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I think your book, funny enough, Gary, is a good evidence of this thing. I think that when you finish a hike, it's the wrong time for me to say it's a better or worse hike now, firstly because I haven't finished it. But I think you need some time to think about what the hike has done to you, what it means to you. So I don't think I'm going to be able to give that definitive answer, what was better, which was a better hike, this one or the last one, until about, 2021.
During your first hike, did you start out knowing that you were going to write about it and talk about it?
No, but I did a blog, and I learned before I went away how to do a blog and how to build a website. And I thought, well, I might as well do this. And once people start listening to the blog, it's funny how that you feel a sort of commitment to write. And I was writing more and more every time, and I'd write 3, 4, and sometimes 5,000 word blog entries. So that became a commitment to me because people were listening. So once I'd finished the hike, I thought to myself, well, I've got all the really quite expansive notes. I had additional notes to the blog where I could put a book together. So I did that. And once I started doing that, I couldn't stop writing. And I wrote about 175,000 words. And my editor said to me, you need to cut it down. You need to write it in American English as opposed to English.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't know there was such a thing. And I cut out 25,000 words and broke it into 2 books, 300-page books.
American English has more guns in it.
Funny enough, I didn't mention that too many times, but yeah, you're right.
And less tact.
Tell us about this subtitle, The Ultimate Midlife Crisis. That sounds very personal.
The subtitle of the podcast is The Ultimate Midlife Crisis.
Okay.
The subtitle of the 2 books were given to me by my sons, one of my sons.
And that's...
He knows me pretty well, because the first one was my Appalachian Trail, book 1, which was... and he wanted to riff off a couple of movies. And one of his movies he wanted to riff off was 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and he called it 3 Weddings and a Sabbatical, because I've been married 3 times and divorced 3 times.
Congratulations.
And the second one, thank you so much. And the second one was on the movie Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Right.
He renamed it Creaking Geezer Hidden Flagon. So I used to drink way too much, and I was old. So,
those are clever.
My boy's a smart boy.
Okay, so the podcast is Ultimate Midlife Crisis. You're 66. You think 132 is reasonable?
Yes, I'm totally going to make 132. Cool. I mean, it's not going to be. I'm definitely going to 100. I'm healthy as, I'll tell you, Gary, I'm as healthy as crap. I've never been healthier in my life.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, let's talk about your health, right? Because you've been posting some pictures online, especially the one that struck me is when you went through Harper's Ferry recently. You found your old Harper's Ferry picture and compared it to your current Harper's Ferry picture. And I would say, right. Yeah, you look healthy in both pictures, but there's more of you in the more recent one.
What are you saying, Gary? I'm a fat bloke. I've had fluctuating weight all my life.
Okay.
And when I started the trail in 2014, I was 245 pounds. I went down to 185. I really, really just lost 60 pounds, and it was too much to lose. I went back up to 270. And then I started this trail at 256. I've only lost 30 pounds. 254, rather. I'm down to about 230, 234. 224, rather.
And how do you feel?
I think it's because I continually eat peanut butter.
Oh, okay.
If I buy a jar of peanut butter, it's gone within 24 hours.
Still? You haven't gotten sick of it?
Oh, I love it. I just love it. Absolutely adore it. And Snickers. I'm eating all the stuff I shouldn't be eating, but I feel healthier now than before because the weight did just drop off me, and I was, I was a bit concerned about it myself, to be honest with you. But now, this time, I just feel healthy, feel great. And I think part of it is because I know what I'm doing, if you know what I mean. The mistakes I made first time, I'm making less of those mistakes. And I think one of the things about hiking, particularly if you've never done it before, is that, you make mistakes. And if you're a sensible person, you don't do it again. And that's really all I try to think about. And
you've done quite a bit between these through hikes as well. You didn't just take these last 4 years off or 5 years off, right? You've been out there crushing miles and.
Yeah, I said to everybody, I'm never going to hike again. And I tried to do the John Muir Trail. I was actually sitting there watching the movie. I don't know if you've seen it, about the John Muir Trail, called Mile and a Half.
Yes.
It's an excellent film. And I'm watching it one evening on TV, and my wife is watching me watching it. She said, "You want to do this, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, I do." So we organised it, tried to go and do it, and I just could not cope with the elevation. So I had to quit after 3 days. The following year, I thought, I'm not going to let that beat me. So I drove from Florida to California, 2,500 miles in 5 days. I stayed in my tent for 5 days, 6 days, just reading in my tent.
At altitude?
Right. At altitude, about 9,300 feet. And I was fine. Went down to Yosemite, started climbing, and somebody found me at about 9,700 feet, sitting on a log or a rock with my tongue hanging out, which is not good. And they said to me, "You better come down." They took me down about 1,000 feet, and I started feeling better. And I knew that, I can't cope with it somehow. I came home and I developed a blood clot in the back of my knee, which went to my lung. Which is a pulmonary edema, apparently. Mm-hmm. Pulmonary embolism.
Yeah.
And so I said to the doctor, "So what's that all about then?" She said, "It's a 30% mortality rate." So that's a 70% not dying rate.
Yeah.
She said, yeah, if you look at it that way. So I decided to look at it that way. So she gave me this stuff called Xarelto, this drug. And she said, it's a blood thinner, but if you have a cut, go directly to the emergency room because you will bleed out. So in those next 6 months, I didn't cut myself at all. And so it's fine now. It's okay.
Wow.
But I know I can't do altitude. So that was another reason, Megan, you asked about why would I do it again. The high trails are just not for me, and I don't want to chance another embolism.
Any problems?
Health above all else.
Of course, yes. And of course, I also did the Camino de Santiago last October. That was fun with my niece.
I want to hear.
Nice.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
To be honest, Gary, it's more of a walk than a hike. Okay. Everybody can do it. And it's about 500 miles. It's the toughest. It was a tough first day, though. It was 17 miles from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port across the Pyrenees into Roncesvalles in Spain.
Yeah.
17 miles, and it's up 4,000 feet and down 4,000 feet. Man, that killed me.
So,
but, I got there.
I was talking to our friend Daniel, who's not on the line tonight, earlier today, and Daniel will appreciate me asking this because our friend, do you know Fozzie, Keith Foskett?
I know he's the last Englishman.
Yeah. So he's on the show often as well, and he just started one of the Caminos today. And Daniel,
really?
Yeah, Daniel and I were talking about that, and Daniel said, "I don't know what a Camino is," and it just occurred to me, like, we just throw this around all the time. Oh, he's on which Camino? But we just throw these terms around because we know what they are. But would you mind telling our listeners just a bit what the difference between the AT and a Camino is?
It's supposed to be a religious walk. The Camino is the way of St. James. St. James apparently spent a bit of time in Spain trying to convert all these heretics, and he died. I think they killed him. And about 800 years later, some brainless local farmer found these bones and said, "This is St. James." And they built an entire industry around it, which is fantastic.
Wow.
And they've got these beautiful, truly beautiful cathedrals. You don't have to be religious to realize how beautiful these cathedrals are. And they've got a bunch of different routes or routes to Santiago, which is on right near the west coast of Spain. And you go to Santiago, you pray there, and then you go on to either Finisterre, I think it's Finisterre, which is the end of the old world, and you throw things into the sea. I didn't do the last bit. I'm going to cough. Sorry. Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry about that for the levels. It was, and you stop every night in towns, and you stay in these things called albergues, which are kind of crummy little hostels. And my niece, who I went with, said after about 2 days, "Do we have to stay in the albergues every night?" So I said, "No, it's all right. We'll stay in a hotel if you like." So we stayed in a hotel. And then about 2 days later, she said, "Why are we staying in the albergues at all? Why don't we just go in a hotel?" So we spent the last 20 days just in going in hotels. But it was still great. I really enjoyed it.
And it's a walk rather than a hike.
It's definitely a walk, not a hike. Yeah. Okay. You go up in a couple of mountains, but really you're walking through the northern plains of Spain. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. And there is about 5 or 6 days across the Meseta, which is basically wheat fields. So not desperately exciting.
Okay. So,
but it's a great thing to do. You visit these Spanish towns and you have a beer and a coffee in every single one, which really pleased my niece. It was great.
But there's some camping. Do you carry a tent and a sleeping bag and all that?
No tent. You carry a sleeping bag because you really wouldn't want to sleep on some of the mattresses in the albergues.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, it was fun. And I would say if you're ever going to do it, go with somebody you love. And I love my niece. So.
Oh.
Sweet. Is she like a child niece? Are we talking like under the age of 18? Like, were you?
She's 43. She's 43.
Oh, so never mind. Okay. I was wondering if it was like a really young kid,
That's
like
funny.
you were hiking with a kid, and I was going to ask you about responsibility and stuff, but never mind.
No. Yeah, 43 is good. She's good. She's good to go at 43.
She's definitely an adult then. Full-fledged
right.
adult.
Absolutely.
It's funny because I had this visual too. I'm glad you asked because I was picturing Steve and like a 12-year-old girl with pigtails holding hands, like skipping from town to town.
No.
Okay.
But go with somebody you love.
You never know.
It was a very moving thing for me to complete this with her. She's the daughter of my brother who sadly passed when he was 56. So we've always been close and we're even closer now.
Well, good.
Can't say there's anybody I'd want to actually hike that long of a distance with.
It was 32 days.
That's
32
true.
days. It's not long.
Yeah, but still 32 days straight with the same person. I mean,
Thanks. Thanks. I mean,
what'd you say, Gary?
I said thanks, I guess.
I
guess
that.
Yeah,
You hiked with him for a long time, didn't you?
I guess I did. Did we hike together for 32 straight days?
A very long time.
It comes
For
across
Gary,
as a long
it felt
time.
like it was never going to end.
It came across a long time in the book. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Actually,
funny
no, that's probably
because-
true. We probably did hike for that period of time. But I always picture, like, when I picture myself backpacking or hiking, I picture myself as like a lone warrior. I'm doing it by myself. And then I like hiking AT. That's what I was picturing in my head. And that's what I went and doing. And then I end up hiking with Gary for probably a couple months
forever
straight and really enjoyed that. And now I'm like in my head still, I'm like, I was like so solo. I'm like, wait, no, I spend a good chunk of time with people.
Yeah.
And I actually enjoyed it.
It's
great.
It's come up a few times recently, it occurred to me that Megan and I hiked together for so long because we were both trying to hike away from each other at exactly the same pace.
We both were thinking, I gotta get rid of this schmuck.
Damn, she's fast.
The entire time.
That's funny.
The full period of time that we were hiking together, we're both like, we gotta break this up. This is not working out.
But
Okay,
don't you think, though, that the friendships you develop in a hike are different to friendships you develop in what some people would call real life? It is a different
100%.
type. Yeah, it's a different type of friendship, and it's a lovely type of friendship as well. But because it's so different, I'm hiking with a guy right now who, in regular life, I would never have met, and yet he and I are hiking close together all day long now, and we're fine because we hike at about the same pace. We've both got the same attitude towards the hike as well.
Is that Trigger?
That is indeed Trigger.
Let's talk about Trigger for a little bit.
Okay.
Because I had fun listening to you interview Trigger on your...
Really?
It was the latest or the one before it. But
it's the latest.
Yeah, because you were talking about how the two of you there was a third member to your party. Correct me if I'm sure I'm getting some of this wrong. There was a lady who she was the logistician, and she was the one making all the plans, and eventually you just kind of let her go. Am I getting that right?
Well, it wasn't quite that way. No, but she was her name was Cushy Life because she liked a cushy life. And she was very good at organising us. So I said to her one day, realise, when you're hiking, actually this is interesting, for me it's interesting anyway. When you're hiking with somebody, the person who is leading the way in the decisions or in the logistics work, you're hiking their hike. And I said, we all recognise we're hiking Cushy's hike. We're all happy to do that right now. This works out for all of us. But you are hiking somebody else's hike if you hike with somebody else. But when Cushy had to go home for graduation. Her daughter was graduating from college. Trigger and I carried on hiking together, and it was just the two of us. And we happened to operate at almost exactly the same pace. The big advantage of hiking with Trigger, and he was probably say the same about hiking with me, is that because we hike roughly the same pace, we keep each other honest, if you know what I mean. He makes me hike another 3 or 4 miles at the end of the day, and vice versa sometimes. And having that partner who wants to do the same sort of thing was really important for me. So we're now hiking Trigger and Steve's hike as opposed to Cush's hike.
And it's okay to hike someone else's hike as long as you're aware that it's happening and,
absolutely.
Yeah, doing it on
totally
purpose.
Agree. Yes, there was absolutely no complaint on my behalf, Gary. I recognized I wanted to articulate it. That's what we would do. We were hiking Cush's hike, and we were happy to do that. And if we meet up with her again, we'll hike with her again. But I don't think we would hike exactly the same way we were before. And I think this is the way in which a hike is dynamic. It changes all the time, as it should do, depending upon who you're around. I'm sure. I mean, listening to you lost Lemmy for a while. You lost Voldemort for a while. Yet you met up and will come and go in your life on that hike as if, it's just a natural part of the hike developing. It's the serendipity.
Kind of like that you touched upon, like the synergy that you have when hiking with a partner, like the kind of keeping each other accountable.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I can tell you, I'm a lazy hiker. And if I wasn't with Trigger, I would be 100 miles behind where I am, because I would stop, because I don't have to say to anybody else, do you want to stop now? I just stop. That's it. It's over. With him, we'll just talk and, let's do another couple of miles. Yeah, let's do another couple of miles. And we carry on. We did 26 miles from Boiling Springs. And I know the first 12 or 13 miles are flat, but you still got to hike 26 miles to get to Duncannon, but we did it all in one. So, and we wouldn't have done it if we'd been doing it separately.
Gary, how relatable is that?
Wow. Yeah, seriously.
I'm asking that very sarcastically because our first mile day was something that we chased together for how long did it take us to like when we started trying to hit 20s? It took us a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Right?
We were probably 3 weeks in before we got a 20.
We had been trying actively to make it happen.
Yeah, I feel like
it wasn't until like there was a solid plan and we're like, all right, we're going to do this. You had that idea one time and I don't know how that came to happen, but
was it?
You had this idea that you were going to do, that this was a great idea for all of us to do. I was like, yeah, we can totally do this.
Well, that was the day that we were trying to escape Bandit, and we wound up doing our 37-mile day. So our first 20 and our first 30 were both the same day.
You did a 37-mile day?
Yeah, we're crazy.
Oh my God.
But that's the thing, like that type of thing is not something I ever would have considered doing had I not been hiking with someone who Sue like floated the idea and was like, hey, do you maybe want to give this a try? And then all of a sudden I'm like, yes, I am all about this. But I mean, there's a lot of things that I don't really, me personally, that I don't really think of. And then when someone mentions it, I'm like, yeah, that's an awesome idea. We should definitely do that. Like the entire Appalachian Trail wasn't even my idea. A friend suggested I do it. And I was like, yes, this is a great idea. This is a perfect fit. Gary suggested we do a crazy day. I'm like, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Why not do over 30 miles in one day? We haven't even done 20 yet. Let's do 37.
Hey guys, I want to do something crazy. I'm doing it. Come with me if you want. Like, I'm doing this.
I'm pretty sure that's kind of how it went. Like we came to a shelter. I think everyone had came in. You're like, guys, I have this idea.
Yeah. The idea kicked in like around 6 p.m. You know how, there's the combination of adrenaline and endorphins, and you've got that sense of accomplishment where you just think like you've got momentum too. And you're just like, let's just keep, we're never going to stop. And then 6 hours later, you think we should have stopped.
I don't know. I don't regret that. I feel like that was a great idea. Although I'm pretty sure we already had a fire going at that shelter.
We did.
Oh, we lost Mighty Blue.
We did.
I can hear you now.
There we go.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
We can
I
hear,
can hear
yes.
you.
You picked the perfect time to drop because we got sidetracked into.
We got sidetracked on like reminiscing of our
inside
It's
stories and
it's a wonderful thing.
remember whens and things that all the people who were never there don't want to hear about. But
Perfect
like,
time.
okay, guys, if I wanted to hear about it, I would have read it in the book, or I already have read it in the book.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if that's in the book. I can't remember.
Yeah. Enough about us.
Mighty
Steve,
Blue.
Yes, Mighty Blue. What do you think about us?
Sorry.
I said it. Enough about us. What do you think about us?
What?
No, sorry.
So self-serving.
Okay,
But I will tell you, I listened. Yours was one of the best of the audio books of any audiobook, but was the best audiobook about an Appalachian Trail that I've heard, and I've heard a lot of them as well, because you really brought it. You really brought your relationship with both Lemmy and Voldemort to life, and it was pretty damn good.
Wow, thank you. Wow. I don't take compliments very well.
He doesn't.
Stop that. All right, I'll tell you.
All right, it sucked. All right,
I'll tell you a fun. I'll tell you.
It was really good.
I'll tell you
Him
a fun
blushing
thing
and kind of like
did.
swatting at the air, just like, oh no, oh no.
I'll tell you a fun thing that I did that I don't know if anybody picked up on as a little production technique was when I read Megan's dialogue, because she talks so fast in real life. I took each sound, like each audio file of her dialogue, and I trimmed out the breaths in between words so the words would arrive at a faster pace. It would sound more like somebody. Yeah, like I did that on most of Megan's dialogue just to give that effect of her talking faster. I don't know if that
is really impressive going for your art. That
I don't know if that mattered or not, but
Could have just paid me to read my own voice.
Yeah.
Or maybe I would have done it for free too.
Okay, so while we currently don't have any real topics, so we didn't, Steve, we didn't really talk about this when we were messaging back and forth, but we usually go until about 8:30. Are you okay to stick around?
My hosts are waiting outside for lunch, for dessert, but I can do another 10 minutes or so. That's all right with you.
Okay, let's.
That works for us.
Yeah, let's do that. So then I'll scrap. I was going to ask you to prove the fundamental theorem of calculus. We'll skip that.
As luck would have it, I couldn't do that.
So I wanted to talk about gear a little bit, but not maybe not in the sense that most hikers are interested. I'm interested in the fact that you're podcasting from the trail. How much extra burden is that creating for you? In terms of not just weight, but like time and effort as well.
Let me ask you: do you enjoy doing this podcast live? You do it every week, pretty much every week, don't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Correct.
So you make a commitment of your time. So your life is doing whatever you're doing. You have to put this time aside, and that's how I look at it on the trail. I wait until I can get into obviously a Wi-Fi area. I feel that the audience are good enough to listen. So we've had tons of downloads. So I'm glad it's working out okay. But the more, and it's a bit like when I did the blog before, the more people listen to it, the more I want to do it, and the more I want it to be good. And so in terms of what I have, I just use an app on my phone called Backpack. And I use a lapel microphone. I make notes every day because otherwise I forget everything. And I talk to those notes when I do the recording. So it takes every time. Each show takes about 2 hours, but as people, if they've listened to it, can hear, I'm editing. I just can't. I can't edit on the trail. It just would take me too darn long. And I sometimes cough, and I don't mean to. I just say sorry and carry on. I'm committed to it way through to the end. But yeah, it adds time to it, but I think it keeps it's a nice record. People's emails are enjoying listening to it. So, kind of why wouldn't I do it?
Right. Okay. So I remember earlier this year when you announced that you were doing this, I was just so excited. I love the idea of you going back out on the trail, repeating your through hike and, you documented it the first time, you wrote about it and took extensive notes, but the podcast version of the AT as presented by Mighty Blue, I have to say is really impressive, not just from a production standpoint, but your content is really, really engaging to listen to. I've been listening to your show for years, as I said at the top of the show, but I've been getting caught up on recent episodes. And what I'm hearing is each episode you seem to get, Steve's, Mighty Blue's updates on, kind of where he is and how he's feeling that day. Sometimes you'll interview a thru hiker that you've met along the trail. Sometimes it's just, sometimes it's just Steve talking into a microphone, which is the hardest way to podcast because, one guy talking into a microphone, that's hard to do, but it's almost like having, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but it's almost like having your grandpa read you a story before bed. Your voice is very soothing, and I just
you're not bloody. You're not bloody, you cheeky bastard.
And I don't mean that in the sense that Mighty Blue puts me to sleep every night. But you know what I mean? Like you have a very, very.
What he's saying is he falls asleep listening to your voice every night.
Nothing wrong with that. It's okay.
Your show has. Okay. So whereas our show kind of has that feeling of like, oh, I just wandered into the shelter and that guy's got pants on his head. Your show's a little bit more like it's cozy, kind of like, oh, this is the hostel where I'm going to stay here for 2 nights,
Wait, we're the show that has pants on the head?
You've met Daniel, right?
It's very cozy. His podcast, he is cozy. I don't know, but your podcast is cozy.
I tell you what I like about, I like the fact that I know that my demographic is older than your demographic. I
Possibly.
think it took me about 50 episodes to realize that I think my show has allowed people to realize that it isn't just for young people to hike the Appalachian Trail. And those of us who've been on it know that already intuitively. But for a lot of people, you think, they're almost shocked that I have guests in their 60s who've done this and 70s who've done this. And it's just great for them to realize that anybody can do this if they can walk 200 yards without requiring oxygen. And I think that's something that a lot of people just didn't know. And so I feel good about that part of the show because I know it is for an older audience, although I've got quite a few youngsters as well, but generally I know it's for an older audience.
Well, you don't just entertain, but you inspire and educate as well. Thank you for making your program.
Appreciate that.
Okay, so we can't let you out of here without one last thing that's kind of become a Stories from the Trail tradition. Because you're short on time, we're just going to get right to it. Mighty Blue, do you have any good poop stories that you would like to share?
I see. Somebody called Bunny asked that a poop story.
It's always Bunny.
Kind of a thing.
And there was a shelter called, I think it's called Eagle's Nest Shelter. And there was an entrance to the shelter. It said, bad news, there is no prison. Good news, there's a shovel. Bad news, rock beats shovel. And that made me laugh, which means you can't dig a hole. Oh, very, very well. So I think, and all old guys like to these shelters because there's a privy. So, and I did it, I've actually told this story before, but I'll tell it again. I'm regular, as they say. And, at about 5:30 the following morning, nature was calling me quite dramatically, so I felt I needed to answer. And I got up and I thought, well, I need to go quite a ways into the woods here. I don't want anybody to see me. And so I wander into the woods. I find a pretty nice place in that. What I'd done, a path somewhere about 5 or 6 yards off from where I was, and I didn't realise, obviously. And as I said at the time, I was in full sumo position, and this young girl walked right past me. I said, "Boy, if she's not possibly have missed me." It was terrible, and I was just literally in the position what I was actually intending to do at the time, and I buried it all and all that sort of good stuff. And I went back, and I went back to the shelter, and there was only one person at the picnic table. just starting a breakfast, and it was this younger girl. And I sat down, and we just sat and chatted to each other as if nothing had happened. I was completely and from the rear, so to speak.
Oh God!
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. And, yeah. But you know what?
Fellow through hiker.
It was a fellow through hike. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember very well actually. Yeah, she terrified me every time I saw her afterwards, because I thought, well, she's seen this dreadful sight, and it must have been awful for her. And yeah, it was a horrible moment for me. But you know, I think one of the things that you do get on the trail, you do learn to do those poop stuff things pretty quickly. You get very feral very quickly, and you get over it. So you know, who cares really?
I like that. Get feral quickly, and then get over it.
Yeah. It's just what it is.
Well, and that goes to a whole other topic that unfortunately I don't think we're going to have time to get to tonight. But you alluded to AT versus quote unquote real life earlier tonight.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
you know that I think poop stories kind of force that dividing line.
There's so many stories.
That's what separates.
Yes,
mm-hmm.
But there are so many parallels between real so-called and hiking that I'm sure all of us could live this really good, I don't know, roadmaps for our own lives from what we've learned on the AT. I said. I think I've lost you again.
All I heard was a cup or a wine glass.
Yeah, that sounded like a cork.
That was a wine glass.
A cork popping.
All of a sudden,
cool.
it cut out, and I heard a weird noise, and then I was like, "Oh, that's a wine glass hitting a table."
So
it was the wine glass.
What's for dessert?
I don't know yet. It's out there. I know though. I don't know what it is, but I know that they're about to eat.
Well, we don't want to keep you because I think we all have a good sweet tooth here on Stories from the Trail, so we don't want to keep you from enjoying whatever dessert awaits you.
No one wants to come.
Sorry, I'm running away. But
no worries. No, this has been great. Thank you so much for coming.
My absolute pleasure. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
For sure. Steve Adams, the podcast is Mighty Blue. You can find that anywhere that you get podcasts. You're listening to a podcast right now. You've already got your phone in your hand. Go ahead and hit that search button, type Mighty Blue, and subscribe. It's worth it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
And thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your hike. Enjoy dessert this evening, and maybe we'll get to talk again in the future.
That'd be lovely.
Happy
Cheers,
trails.
Guys. Cheers, man. Cheers. Bye.
All right. Well, I'm jealous because he's going to go eat something delicious.
I want to go eat dessert. I don't have any dessert though.
All right. Well, Reptar is off this evening, and our guest is eating dessert. I think we're pretty close enough to our finish time that we can just go ahead and call this one an early night if you guys don't mind. Any objections?
No, I wanted to party all night long.
Well, geez, Larry, I'll hop in the car and drive on up there. I'll see you in a couple hours. You got any?
Don't you know Game 7 is on, guys? It's Game 7.
I got the smoke, dude.
Oh, shit, that's tonight, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, like Wednesday.
Tonight.
All right, well, that's happening in the other room right now because the puck drop was at 8, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. See y'all sometime.
Okay. Yeah, we're getting confirmation from the chat room that hockey.
We're getting hockey fans in the chat room saying, "Wrap this up. The game is on."
All right. Hey, Voldemort, you wanna wrap us out this evening? You wanna play us out?
Take care, bunny.
You want me to rap, Gary? Is that what you're asking me to do?
I'll drop a beat, and you rap the end credits.
Well, that will never happen. Never. Not even for a karaoke night. I don't even do karaoke. See people in the chat saying no singing.
Okay. Well, all right. You want to do a quick shout out for our Patreon social media stuff, and then
of course. First of all, thanks everyone for showing up tonight. Really appreciate it. If you want to sponsor our show, I shouldn't say sponsor though, right, Gary?
I like support. I think support is better.
if you want to help us keep doing what we love doing and what we love having you guys be a part of, please check us out at patreon.com/storiesfromthetrail. Is that right, Gary?
Perfect.
Sometimes I get those web addresses incorrect.
No, you did. I'm glad that you don't say /.
Oh, I was going to make a joke. Never mind.
Okay.
Good one, Larry.
Before I even start.
All right. Well, we will be back 1 week from tonight. And just like this week, it'll come together at the last possible minute. So watch us on.
So we don't know who we're interviewing next week.
Yep. Watch us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we will let you know who to expect and when and where and all that. So.
Not Twitter, though. Not Twitter.
No tweets?
Nope, no tweets.
Okay,
nope, just Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
Twitter handle wasn't available, remember?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and the one I picked, I didn't like, so I haven't actually, we're not using it because it's not good. I'm going to wait until the one we want is available, or until we have
Hey, I'm going to
come
go
up with something more creative.
Eat some hockey and watch some pizza.
Sounds like a great idea. I might just go to bed.
See you next time.
Next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Stories from the Trail is a production of thetrek.co. Zach Davis, editor-in-chief. Each episode is recorded in front of a live internet audience. You can be part of that internet audience if you care to join us on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. There's a link in the show notes that tells you everything you need. Our music is by Lee Rosevere. Your hosts are Green Giant, Voldemort, and Reptar. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those places. Just look for Stories from the Trail. It's probably us. The show is recorded, mixed, and edited by me, Gary Sizer, in Blanket Fort Studios, which is just me in my basement with a blanket over my head. Thanks for listening.
So now I need to have 1 million dongles, and I don't yet live that dongle life.